Two plane crashes happened within a couple of days of each other, leading to several deaths and a launch of conspiracy theories because, well, I can't think of a single time in history where two major plane crashes have happened within a couple of days of each other in such a short span after a very, very important historic event. But we're going to talk about the facts that are out here. We'll talk about some of the conspiracy theories that go with it, and what happens with this now that this is all over and we're starting to gather up the black box. So we'll go over that, everything else that's happening there, and what happens with this. We are at the dawn of a new administration. Donald Trump is inaugurated for his second term, becoming the second president in U.S. history to claim two non-consecutive terms. So we're going to talk about what happens with that, what a lot of this means, what's happened in these last 2 weeks since he has placed his hand on the Bible and apparently didn't burst into flames when he did, and what comes next over the next 4 years. Elon Musk has been going after very, very large swaths of the federal budget, trying to find places to insert government efficiency in a government that doesn't believe in efficiency and couldn't believe in efficiency if you tried. But we'll go over what's happening there, what the conspiracy theories are coming from the left about this, and what some of the things that are being cut actually are. And going back to the previous administration, Joe Biden issues a series of what he called preemptive pardons as he's walking out the door. So we'll talk about that, what's happening with that, and where we go from there. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary, because we are back in a new studio. A little bit of echo in here. We're working on getting that taken care of right now, but we're here and anticipating being here for the next 30 or so years. So strap yourselves in, find a friend, grab some dinner, and prepare to catch up with 2 weeks worth of news crammed into 2 hours, and show me how you want it to be. Tell me, baby, because I need to know now. Oh, because I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is J. Edgar, and we're here. I did it. After all the hell that went through, everything that went off. Oh, by the way, I'm not streaming to Instagram for whatever reason. I don't know why that is. Let me see if we can rectify that. There we go. After all the hell an identity theft that held me away from being able to purchase property for the majority of my adult life, trying to find the right place, getting a job transfer, trying to find the place after getting a job transfer, a large amount of struggles that had to do with getting this place secured, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Yes, brand new studio. There's a house attached to it outside of that door. Pretty good sized house too. Great yard, great town. The town is not going to be announced live on air. I'm just going to say that I'm somewhere in the vicinity of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, because I am intending to get a P.O. box in Eau Claire so that you guys can send me stuff. I'm in one of the small towns that's in the metro area, but I'm not going to tell you which one it is. We're just going to put that one out there. It's small enough that you can find me. And while I appreciate most of the audience that's probably going to be here for this nice premiere, there's some weird people that I get into arguments with on X, and I don't want them to be able to find this place. So, regardless, we're here. A lot of stuff has changed as of right now. One of the exciting things about the way that my life has been scheduled is I can sit down and I can enjoy the fruits of my labor with you. No, not my 9-to-5 job. You're never going to know what that is either, but I brought in a couple glasses with me today. Actually, if you were watching the cold open, you probably saw one of the instances there, because I can have myself a little drinky drink with you guys right now. And I've got a nice rhubarb mead in this glass, and I actually poured myself a glass of hard cider as well. It's a little bit dry. I still have to get right on the hang of figuring out when it is that I stop the fermentation, get it into the bottles, and get it back sweetened to a proper point where it's not just going to completely dry back out while it's carbonating in the bottle. But it sure is good, and even people that I know that like sweet stuff are enjoying it. So I got a couple glasses here. Nice rhubarb mead. Rhubarb came from my parents' place, so it's good stuff. It's growing right out in the country, so I can have a little drinky drink with you. Now, I'm not going to go get hammered on Contemporary, obviously. I have a family that lives here. But if we want to have a nice bottle of bourbon in here in a nice glass, that's something that we can do. Not something I get to sit and complain about because I got to be up early to go to work the next morning. And realistically, I'll probably do it more in the summer than I will in the winter, but I mean, this is all about taking advantage of it as well. So, yeah, we got a lot to go over here today, too, because, well, it took a little bit longer to get everything prepped to get into this place than I thought it was going to. I was kind of hoping I'd be able to plug in and be back on in a week. Now, we might experience a couple skipped frames as we're redoing some of the wiring in this place. And yes, the black dresser from the old place is still behind me. Drawers are still out in the garage. I'm organizing and going through those and getting rid of some of the stuff that was in them because, well, there was a lot of stuff in there and I never unpacked it when I moved the first time because I didn't think I was going to spend 2 years in that place. That is not something that I thought that would happen. The wall behind me here, which is going to wind up being the new scene, I gotta tinker with how I'm going to have my camera. I almost put it up over onto my right-hand screen over here right away. But then I realized that you could see everything over here, including my left-hand screen from where that is. So I gotta tweak that, figure out where that's going. So a lot of stuff is moving, a lot of stuff is changing. If you know me personally, you know that there are other big changes in my life. Not ready to go back and announce that yet, but another big change there as well. So a lot to go over. A ton to go over here today over on Contemporary. So strap yourselves in, find a friend, and let's check in with a live chat. Also, keep in mind, you can live chat along. If you see something you like, if you see something you hate, you can definitely come in and join us for that. My Netgear is showing up in the shot there. It's a Netgear wireless modem because, well, until we get the cable rewired in this house because it's rural, that's what we had to resort to. All right, let's check in with the live chat. Pom is here. Pom helped me out with a great conversation I had with the hairy-chested libertarian, or Paul Thompson if you prefer. Author, actor, sound guy, musician, great guy, great conversation. We talked a lot about books for that. That will be up on the audio platforms probably right around Friday. So that's what we have with that. Grant is saying the room changed. Yep. Watching more ads. Where are Vong and Mog? I don't know. The literal fruit. Don't know what's going on with the literal fruit. Yeah, one of the drawers did fall apart in the move, unfortunately. Putting drawers back together, yes. I do have a small spotlight on me as well. It's a flashlight that I got as a freebie from one of my vendors at my daytime job. But it does the job, and it does say, yes, it's time to go and grab a ring light. That's, I don't know if you can tell, that's over off to my left on a screen that I don't typically use, so... I'm going to be the basic one and get a ring light, I think, but that's going to be coming a little bit down the future. All right, enough introductions. It is time to get into the news. I thought that was Michelle Hafey, not Coffee Date, which she might have actually borrowed the lyrics from that. That should go on things that I like, by the way. I like Coffee Date's music. If you guys are not familiar with the music that we use on the background here, Game Chops is a live stream on YouTube that is completely copyright free. That's right, you can use it on your stream and it won't trigger any of those pesky copyright warnings on there. Well, it does occasionally on YouTube, but great selection of music. DJ Cutman, Coffee Date, K Murdoch is on there a little bit, and a bunch of others. Go and check that out as well. And yeah, we're still doing introductions, so it's time to get down into the news. So let's get the live chat up here. Let me know what you guys are talking about. Yeah, we'll have to do the meter for checking the cables. All right, let's get down to it. We're gonna start with the bad news this week, unfortunately, because, well, typically if there is some sort of tragedy, that's what I like to start with off of this, get that kind of stuff out of the way, and say the F's in the chat for the people who deserves the F's in the chat to pay respects. So let's get into it. We're going to start off with a post from Curtis Hook over on X. Curtis Hook, I don't even know who that is. Let's highlight over there. He's the managing editor for Newsbusters, proud graduate of Penn State and Manheim Township via Lancaster, Pennsylvania. CNN aviation correspondent and private pilot Pete Muntean. I'm stumbling over my words here because this is just so staggering. But there is a mid-air collision involving a commercial airliner. Commercial flights are equipped for ages with a system called TCAS, Traffic Collision Avoidance System. It tells the pilots in the cockpit how to avoid other airplanes nearby. It is a system that came about because of mid-air collisions with commercial airliners and small general aviation aircraft. Commercial airliners and helicopters, it tells the pilots there's traffic ahead. You climb, now descend, descend now. This would be an incredible lining up of holes in the Swiss cheese, the which is saying in aviation, the gaps in the safety chain in aviation, that this happened, and now investigators have an incredible amount of work cut out for them to figure out how a commercial airliner in the US in 2025, when the pilots are incredibly trained, the technology is incredibly sharp, collided with what is apparently a military or government helicopter. No one else uses the Black Hawk? Yeah, it is really something. I am just stunned. So, let's listen. There's a community note on this one that was not on when I picked up this X. Traffic collision avoidance system generates aural and visual alerts to separate aircraft that are getting too close together. However, most of these alerts are disabled when the aircraft is below 1,000 feet in altitude to prevent false alerts near airports, which actually probably makes sense because I do believe that this happened at a fairly low altitude. Let's watch the video.
The approach, I'm stumbling over my words here because this is just so staggering. that there was a mid-air collision involving a commercial airliner. Commercial flights are equipped for ages with a system called TCAS, Traffic Collision Avoidance System. It tells the pilots in the cockpit how to avoid other airplanes nearby. It is a system that came about because of mid-air collisions with commercial airliners and small general aviation aircraft, commercial airliners, and helicopters. It tells the pilots, there's traffic ahead of you, climb now, descend now. This would be an incredible lining up of the holes in the Swiss cheese, which is the saying in aviation, the gaps in the safety chain in aviation, that this happened. And now investigators have an incredible amount of work cut out for them to figure out how a commercial airliner in the United States in 2025, when the pilots are incredibly trained, the technology is incredibly sharp, collided with what is apparently a military or government helicopter. Nobody else uses the Black Hawk.
Yeah.
It is really something else. I'm just stunned.
All right, so there is the video of the initial reaction of this. So let's read from Fox News. Reagan National Airport crash. Military Black Hawk helicopter collides midair with American Airlines jet. This is from Greg Wenner and Jennifer Griffin over at Fox News. A massive search and rescue effort was underway after an Army Black Hawk helicopter collided midair with an American Airlines jet at Reagan National Airport in Arlington, Virginia on Wednesday evening. According to FAA, a PSA Airlines Bombardier CRJ-700 regional jet collided in midair with a Sikorsky UH-60 helicopter while on approach to runway 33 at Reagan National Airport. DCA, if you are up on your airport designations, around 9 p.m. Eastern Time. PSA was operating as Flight 5342 for American Airlines, which departed from Wichita, Kansas. There was no immediate word on casualties or the cause of collision. We are going to talk about that a little bit later. Newly minted White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt told Fox News' Sean Hannity that President Trump is aware of the situation, calling it tragic. Trump later released a statement, writing, "I've been fully briefed on the terrible accident which just took place at Reagan National Airport. May God bless their souls. Thank you for the incredible work being done by our first responders. I am monitoring the situation and will provide more details as they arise." Apparently there was just another one in South Korea as well. According to American Airlines, there were 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board the CRJ-700 aircraft. Our concern is for the passengers and crew on board the aircraft, the airline said in a statement. We are in contact with authorities and assisting with emergency response efforts, unfortunately. And this is fairly recent. But we've had updates since then that no, there were unfortunately no survivors in this collision. None. It is a sad, sad day as such. There were 3 soldiers in the helicopter at the time of the crash, according to an Army official. We can confirm that the aircraft involved in tonight's incident was an Army UH-60, that's Uniform Hotel, if you're speaking on radio, helicopter from Bravo Company, 12th Aviation Battalion out of Davison Army Airfield, Fort Belvoir, during a training flight. The Army confirmed to Fox News Digital. Where is Fort Belvoir? Apologize, I'm not up on my Southern Army forts. get the map out. That's in Virginia. I'll borrow the Google and the Chrome window. So just south of Alexandria, so a fair amount south of DC. Not quite to Richmond yet, I don't think. Yep, no, not quite to Richmond. I've been through Richmond. I've actually been on this highway, so I probably could see Fort Belvoir from where I was. Those of you who have been with the channel for a long time will recall my epic road trip with one Stephen Ignoramus. From DC down to Orlando and back. On a live stream on his phone the entire time. One of the best weeks of my life, by the way. Not the best, but one of the best. Alright, back to the article. The Sikorsky UH-60 Blackhawk is a 4-blade twin-engine medium-lift utility military helicopter which can carry 15 people, including 2 pilots, 2 crew chiefs, and 2 rescue specialists. Jack Powder, the president and CEO of Metro Washington Airports Authority, said during a press conference that flights will resume from the airport at 1100 hours, again local time. At the time of the crash, Reagan National Airport reported clear skies, visibility of 10 miles, and winds sustained out of the northwest at 16 miles an hour. The temperature at the time was 50 degrees. Now, again, this has launched a 12.5 conspiracy theories with this. We do have the name of the pilot. I don't have it right offhand. Pilot of Hawk. And DC crash. Yeah, Lobash, that was the name. Rebecca M. Lobash. Now, there are people, and I'm not going to disseminate in this currently because I don't know. And there is going to be a chance that we never know. I will say that Miss Lobash's social media, which had a fairly significant footprint at the time, has been completely scrubbed. So, while I'm not going to confirm that there was some sort of foul play with this, I will say that there's reason that people have suspicions of foul play with this. The pilot in this particular crash was, if I recall correctly, a member of Biden's staff. Not of the cabinet, but a member of Biden's staff at some point. And was in the LGBTQIARMIGIAGXTIOU, sometimes Y, community. Now again, I'm not going to come back out and say until there's some sort of confirmation that this was motivated by any of that, but I am going to put these things out there because they're being discussed. I don't know what was happening in the midst of this. This could have been an absolute freak accident of sorts. But given the fact that it was over DC, right after the inauguration, person worked in the previous administration, and of course, the radicalizing calls of the current president of the United States is literally Hitler. I'm not saying that it was terrorism, but I'm saying let's actually have a look at this one and see. Maybe we'll have peace of mind. Maybe we'll go to bed at night and find out that, oh no, there was a glitch somewhere in the control panel and it crashed. So that is what we have at this one so far. F's in the chat for all of the victims on both aircraft. From CNN, U.S. bodies of all victims have been recovered from river where jet collided with Blackhawk. From Karina Sway, Andy Rose, Pete Montine, and Alexandra Scores. Crews working at the site of the deadliest aviation disaster in a generation have recovered all 67 victims of the collision between 2 aircraft over the Potomac and D.C., officials said on Tuesday. Now their attention turns to clearing the remaining wreckage. The Bombardier CRJ-700 jet operating as American Airlines Flight 5342 and an Army Black Hawk helicopter on a training mission ran into each other over the river nearly a week ago in an accident that remains unexplained. More parts of the plane, which are also form pieces of the puzzle investigators are trying to solve, were pulled from the river Tuesday. One section of the plane's fuselage lay sideways on a barge, a row of cabin windows are clearly visible. By afternoon, the plane's tail, with its distinctive red, white, and blue livery, was removed from the murky water. Officials have said they would likely recover the American Airlines cockpit later Tuesday, wind gusts and tidal levels permitting. As of Tuesday, 66 of the 67 victims recovered have been identified. For the second day in a row, Tuesday, the National Transportation Safety Board, which has been reviewing data from the Blackhawks flight data recorder that was recovered over the weekend, backed away from announced plans for a public briefing on its investigation. NTSB needs additional information to verify data points from the Blackhawk, the agency said in a post on X, adding that a written update would be released later in the day. Trump spoke to American Airlines CEO Robert Isom by phone on Monday, a source familiar with the call told CNN. Unnamed, of course. Unnamed sources are key in D.C. again. The White House did not comment Tuesday on what was discussed, which tells me that it was completely untoward, because the unnamed source would have released if there was something that was untoward. Alright. Palm is apparently not going to let me get a ring light, but it's so basic, and I can put my phone in the middle of it for the Instagram stream. Keep you company on the walk, I guess, huh? Let's see, is this guy saying the tech didn't tell them what to do? It's possible, yes. Could take credit for the best week, but I won't. That is a conversation for off of stream. CNN obtained a memo from Isom to employees confirming the call with Trump. In it, Isom says the president called to share his condolences for our crew members, passengers, and their loved ones. The note also says he asked Isom to relay his personal appreciation for the work of airline employees supporting the families. The airline will observe a moment of silence on Wednesday to mark 1 week since the fatal collision, according to a note from Isom. Let's take a moment of silence right now, because we'll be on stream on Wednesday, but for a different reason. We'll be playing BioShock. So, moment of silence. As a salvage team continues to work in cold winter conditions to lift debris from the frigid water, key questions about the cause of the fatal collision remain, though answers may not be immediately clear for weeks. The former director of the FAA's Office of Accident Investigation, Stephen Wallace, said he is confident the cause of the disaster will eventually be unambiguous. But the question is going to be, will they release it to the public? We have radar data, we have eyewitnesses, we have all the wreckage, Wallace told CNN's Phil Mattingly. There is nothing missing. By Wednesday, inclement weather will bear down on D.C. with snow, sleet, and freezing rain expected to worsen already tough conditions for recovery personnel. Excuse me. The mangled wreckage in the Potomac has made recovery effort especially difficult for dive teams who have struggled to access parts of the plane's fuselage where bodies may be trapped. These sections will need to be removed to retrieve the remaining bodies, DC Fire and EMS Chief John Donnelly said. So, they're still working. They can apparently identify and see where all the bodies are. And F's in the chat for those who lost their lives. Now, this event has ended. Last update was 3 days ago on February 1st, but this is a live event. Investigators working to download data from helicopter jet black boxes in crash over Potomac. I know the reasoning behind the old joke. The old joke has always been, though, if the black box can always be recovered with the recording still intact and is somehow undamaged every time a plane crashes, why don't they make the whole goddamn plane out of the stuff that they make the black box out of? And to that I say, I get where you're coming from, I do, but if you made the whole plane out of the stuff, it would probably be too heavy to fly. Not only that, but even if it wasn't too heavy to fly, when you put that much momentum and force behind something crashing into the ground, I don't care what you make it out of, it's going to get damaged. Plain and simple. So what we know off of this one, 2 black boxes from the American Eagle passenger jet and a device from the helicopter have been recovered, and the NTSB said data is being downloaded from the device as it continues to discover how the crash happened. What happened inside the Black Hawk in the moments before the fatal crash is key to unraveling the disaster, experts say. All 67 people on board both the passenger jet and the Black Hawk military helicopter are presumed dead. The FAA has issued a new flight restriction for helicopters in the DC area and Reagan National Airport, which, by the way, I was to the understanding were already in place before any of this. So, I do have questions about that. I have a lot of questions about that. I often have many questions about many things as I analyze the news. Figure skaters, union workers, and professors were among those killed in the crash, and details are emerging about the crew on the aircraft. From the USA Today, Black Hawk helicopter's altitude at issue. Family of crash victims want answers. From John Bacon. And editor's note with this one, this page reflects the news on the recovery of the plane and helicopter crash in Washington from Sunday, February 2nd. For the latest updates, read USA Today's coverage from Monday, February 3rd. No. The Black Hawk helicopter that collided with passenger jet near DC last week may have been flying higher than the maximum altitude for its training mission, authorities said. NTSB investigators have determined the CRJ-700 airplane was at 325 feet, plus or minus 25 feet, at the time of impact, which would be why the TCAS was not functioning. The information was based on data recovered from the jet's flight data recorder that tracks the aircraft's movements, speed, and other technical information. Just before the impact, the crew aboard the American Airlines flight had a verbal reaction, according to the plane's cockpit voice recorder. I'm going to guess it went like, "What the fuck is that? Holy fuck, we're going to die." Verbal reaction. Release the tapes, I want to hear that. There's a little bit of morbid in me that wants to hear that. I know it's not right, but there's a little bit of morbid in me that wants to hear that. And the flight data shows the plane's nose began to rise, NTSB investigator Bruce Banning said. So they saw this coming, and they were trying to get the fuck out of the way. The plane's altitude suggests the Army helicopter was flying above 200 feet, the maximum altitude for the route that it was using, yet the control tower's radar apparently showed the helicopter at 200 feet at the time of the accident, though that information has not been confirmed. Battle of dueling recordings, apparently. That's what our job is, to figure that out, NTSB board member Todd Inman said. The helicopter collided Wednesday with American Airlines Flight 5342 from Wichita, which was minutes from touching down at Reagan. All 64 people on the plane and all 3 aboard the helicopter have perished. Consolidation of controllers took place before the crash. Air traffic control staffing on Wednesday in Washington on the night of the crash wasn't normal. Secretary Sean Duffy confirmed on Sunday. What was happening inside the tower? Were they understaffed? He said on a CNN State of the Union. Was it a right decision to consolidate the positions of the air traffic controllers from 2 to 1? Those are questions that we need answers to. Duffy said investigators must also determine whether the pilots were wearing NVGs, and if so, did they affect pilot vision or perception? If they did have night goggles on, why are they flying at 9 o'clock when DCA is so busy? Duffy said they should be flying at 0100 instead. Duffy added that the pending NTSB investigation, helicopters won't be flying in the airport's airspace in the near future. So, we have that. And I still have a lot of questions about this one. Further to the north, in Pennsylvania, from Fox News with a live update, medevac flight transporting pediatric patient crashes and explodes near homes in Philadelphia. Philadelphia commissar says, here's the fast facts first. A medical ambulance plane transporting a young girl who had just received life-saving treatment crashed on a street Friday night near the Roosevelt Mall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, the global ambulance flight company operating the plane, said its Learjet 55 crashed while departing from the Northeast Philadelphia airport at about 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The company said there were 4 crew members and 2 passengers on the plane at the time, a pilot, a co-pilot, physician, paramedic, pediatric patient, and her mother. They were all Mexican nationals. That's interesting. One of the things that I saw about this, and unfortunately with the move I was not able to deep dive into a lot of this, was that the call numbers on the flight indicated that it was originating from Mexico. I have no confirmation of that, but the fact that all 6 people on the plane were Mexican nationals tells me that actually that might be the case. So this might have been a mission of mercy. Commissar says there are no words to describe the plane crash tragedy. Lisa Dealey, vice chair of the Philadelphia Commission, posted to X saying that she has no words for the devastation in her community following the tragic medevac plane crash on Friday night. The last 21 hours have been a surge of emotions, Dealey wrote in a post. A tragic plane crash occurred a half mile from the home where I grew up in. Lived in for over 50 years and where I'm still an active member of the community. Dealey said there are no words to express how troubling the videos and images coming out of her neighborhood have been. Jefferson Health confirms 15 Philadelphia plane crash victims are treated. Because yes, this landed on the street. There's a burnt out sob from the point where this exploded. While city officials have only confirmed 19 injuries resulting from the medevac crash in Philadelphia, local hospitals have released statements indicating the number is likely higher. Jefferson Health on Saturday confirmed it provided care for 15 victims. Of those treated, 12 were discharged and 2 have been admitted. According to Jefferson Health, 1 patient was transferred to another hospital. And we have video here. We're not going to do the whole 16 minutes, but NTSB says medevac plane made steep descent before Philadelphia crash. So, I'm thinking engine failure, honestly, on this one. I'm not going to go to the worst place on this one because this does sound like engine failure of some sort. Leaking fuel, especially on a turbojet like that, can make for a pretty big boom when it hits. Let's listen to the video.
If you're not familiar with the National Transportation Safety Board and our mission, we are an independent
Maybe we can't.
federal agency
That's pretty quiet.
by Congress.
And that's cranked, and that's on the source from Fox News. So apparently we're not going to be able to do that. The NTSB, which is investigating the devastating crash in Philly on Friday night, announced it's searching for the aircraft's black box, still missing among the scattered debris field, which our next article will read. They have now, at this point, found that. Okay, here we have some details. During a news conference on Saturday, the NTSB says the flight originated in Opelika, Florida, and arrived at Northeast Philadelphia Airport around 2:15 p.m. The plane remained on the ground for a few hours before departing runway 2 after sunset about 6:06 p.m. and climbed to about 1,500 feet. We're looking at GPS data on the aircraft, said NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy. The plane made a slight right turn, followed by a slight left turn, and then a steep descent towards the ground. Where it crashed, the flight lasted less than a minute. That does sound like engine failure, by the way. Homendy noted the right and left turns before the crash don't really suggest anything right now. Really? Still sounds like engine failure to me. The crash is still classified as an accident. Crews have found the two engines and are searching for the cockpit voice recorder, which might provide more information. However, the debris field extends 4 to 5 blocks and could take days to weeks to collect, according to NTSB. Once picked up, crews will move debris to a secure location for evaluation. So, some information with that as well. I see we have new chatters. Long is here, tremble in fear, mortals, for I've arrived. Commissar, the article says Commissioner. Well, what you said is more accurate. Apparently. Boil your goose. I could go for some boiled goose. I don't like duck, though. You could hear it, but only in your left ear. Yeah, it was probably at about the level the music was in my headphones. From USA Today, black box recovered from fiery Philadelphia air ambulance crash, more victims identified. From John Bacon, J.D. Elaine, and Thao Win. Investigators have recovered the cockpit voice recorder for an air ambulance that plunged into a Philadelphia neighborhood, killing 7 people and injuring over 20 others, the NTSB announced on Sunday. The cockpit voice recorder, commonly known as the black box, was located at the site of the initial impact at a depth of 8 feet. Yeah, I'm sure that when that thing hit the ground, it was cooking already, and then it took another explosion impact on top of it. The NTSB said in a statement, investigators also recovered the plane's enhanced ground proximity warning system, which could also contain flight data. Both components will be sent to the NTSB Vehicle Recorders Laboratory in D.C. for evaluation, the NTSB said. Wreckage recovery continues tomorrow, and all of the wreckage will be sent to a secure location in Delaware for further examination. I'm not used to having a dog in here with me. That scared the crap out of me. I don't know if you caught that in the microphone, but yeah, he shook his head and I heard his collar jingle and like, oh, am I getting robbed? The Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, a Learjet 55, had flown to Philly from Miami Opelika Executive Airport earlier that Friday. The plane took off from northeast Philadelphia around 6:30, quickly took a nosedive, slamming into the ground at about 300 miles an hour, which is why the black box was 8 feet underground. According to initial reports, the flight was bound for Branson, Missouri, before headed to its destination, Mexico. All 6 aboard the plane, a pilot, a co-pilot, 2 medical personnel, a patient, and her mother died in the crash. Authorities said 1 person in a car on the ground was also killed. Claudia Acaton Muniz, the mayor of Ensenada, Mexico, posted information on the social media identifying the pediatric patient as resident Valentina Guzman Murillo and her mother Lizeth Murillo Osuna Muniz said the city would help return the bodies to family members in Ensenada for a proper burial, of course. So, F in the chat for that. That one's a repeat. They're identifying the victims, and they found the cockpit voice recorder. And I think I've got one last one here. Yes, I do. From NBC 10, Philadelphia, what we know and what we don't after medical jet crash in Northeast Philly. From Hayden Mittman. In the aftermath of a devastating crash of a medical jet in Northeast Philly, information has been slowly coming out about the flight and those who lost their lives in the crash, the effect the incident has had on the community, and other specifics. But there are questions that remain to be answered. So what do we know so far? On Friday, January 31st, just after 6, Learjet 55, operated by Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, crashed along Cotton Avenue, in front of the Roosevelt Mall. We know that. Who was on the plane? A pediatric patient, her mother, 2 doctors, and 2 pilots. Why did the plane crash? No official cause of the crash has yet been provided. The flight path shows the plane made it about 1,600 feet in the air before air traffic control lost contact. According to the flight tracker, company Flight Aware, the jet took off from Northeast Philly around 6:06 p.m. on Friday. The air traffic controller made contact with the plane on departure, and the pilot responded. However, shortly after takeoff, air traffic controllers repeatedly tried to make contact with the pilot again, but they got no response. The flight path shows the plane made it about 1,600 feet in the air before air traffic control lost contact. So I'm feeling electrical or engine failure, because if they lost contact, they lost radios as well. So, a lot of stuff happening with that one. A lot of answers with this one. I don't suspect any foul play in this one. And I'm hoping that we don't get any off the other one either. I'm going to be completely honest with that, but I know there are a lot of people that really suspect foul play in that one. I do think that the Philadelphia one was an engine failure or an electrical failure. It got up, the engine gave up, took out the alternator, took out the batteries, and to the ground she went. F's in the chat. All right, well, now we talk about what I think most people expected this entire stream to be about. The new Trump presidency, and I got a lot of stuff for that one here. I'm hoping we get through it all, because I still have some leftover stuff from the Biden admin to talk about as well. Highlights from Trump's presidential inauguration from the Associated Press. Let's go working backwards. So we've got a full highlights list here. That's going all the way back to 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And let's go back to this. Second gentleman heads to the Capitol. Flags are up at the Capitol. First Lady, incoming First Lady, leave the White House. Biden and Trump share a limo. That was probably kind of classy. I didn't watch a lot of this because I was in the process of moving in at the time. Yeah, they had a full out. Pence and the Clintons get booed in the arena. Nice. Just in, J6 committee heads Thompson and Cheney say Biden pardons are not for breaking the law, but for upholding it. So yeah, there was a big to-do, and the Associated Press actually puts this all out here in just a timeline of this. But yes, Donald Trump has been inaugurated, has been sworn in as the second president in history to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. The first, of course, being Grover Cleveland. And he's had a busy couple of weeks since then. And it was a very, very, very active inauguration with a lot of political who's who. I know that the big deal is that Kanye didn't go, which honestly don't really care that much. The only time I want to see Kanye in DC is if he actually manages to get himself elected for reasons that I wouldn't be able to explain. I did listen to the inaugural address before we got started. I was listening to that while I was setting up the tabs and moving everything around where I wanted it to be. There was a message of hope in the message. The address talked about some of the failures of the previous administration, but mostly it was a very forward-moving address. It's Trump, so he can't help but go back and talk about the failures of the people who came before him and what he's trying to do with this. He can't help but talk about other people and what it is that they've done. But with that being said, and with the Orange Man being the Orange Man as he is, I felt hopeful listening to that. I know he veered off into the Panama Canal and the Gulf of America. He talked about Mount McKinley, which I wasn't even aware that had been renamed at some point in the past. But to take the speech only at its face value, without any spin, without any context, without anything else, it was a standard inauguration speech. A lot of talk about working together, a lot of talk about trying to make a prosperity for Americans on the whole. The standard fare that comes from any presidency, especially when they've made their entire candidacy about prosperity for the American people. So, Trump's inauguration address echoes his rally speeches. The speech Trump is delivering sounds a lot like his rally speeches, with plenty of grievance, including referencing those who tried to take my freedom and the weaponization of our Justice Department. Yeah, that's the part that they focus on. Trump, after leaving office, became the first former president to be indicted, convicted, and sentenced, but he has long tried to cast his many investigations as politically motivated. So, he is in office. Trump wants to plant an American flag on Mars. That does echo back to the Kennedy years, the moon shot. Because now they're talking about doing the Mars shot. I don't think it'll happen in this term. I think it's a nice shot, and I think it's something that we can work for and strive for American excellence. I just don't know that it's going to happen in these next 4 years. I'd like it to happen in these next 4 years. I think it'd be cool, and I think it'd be really unifying to this country, especially. Oh, that's my voice. That's not the button I wanted to click. But yeah, it's been great. It was funny when this was all coming out, and I'm glad I scrolled up on this too. A couple of different celebrities, including Carrie Underwood, said that they wanted to perform at the inauguration. Actually, Snoop Dogg said that he wanted to perform at a charity involving Mr. Trump. Not at the inauguration itself, but a charity event that was happening right before the inauguration that involved Mr. Trump. And both of them, both Underwood and Dogg, got their careers threatened by doing so. Like, oh, I'm never going to buy another Carrie Underwood CD or another Carrie Underwood song. I guess we're in the digital age at this point. And, oh, your career is over because you wanted to go sing at the inauguration of the insurrectionist. I don't think it's over. Underwood is one of the few actually talented people to come off of American Idol. There aren't a lot of them. She's one of the few. And Snoop Dogg will just do something else about Money Cash Hoes and everyone else is going to love him again. So, I think a lot of that was a lot of bluster, and the fact that they even sang at the inauguration of the charity event has probably already been forgotten in a lot of minds. Alright, let's grab one from our friends over at NPR. They have 4 takeaways from Trump's second inaugural address, and of course, remember, you have to hit that donate button because NPR is only 10% government funded, and the ad revenue does not cover paying journalists, and I say that in quotes to tell you that anybody who is to the right of Mao is inherently evil. So, hit that donate button because NPR is never printing reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what their 4 takeaways are from Trump's second inaugural address. This article is written by Domenico Montanaro. By the way, I could do that for the whole article. I would do that for you. I would do that just for you. Because I love you, audience. In what was arguably the most unusual inauguration in American history, President Trump pledged a golden age for the country, while castigating the outgoing admin, with now former President Biden sitting just feet behind him. The golden age of America begins right now, Trump said in his second inaugural address, which was moved inside because of cold weather and the fact that 3 fucking people have tried to kill him. I'm pretty sure the Secret Service had a say in that one. From this day forward, our country will flourish. We'll be the envy of every nation. And we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. Mr. Trump stuck to the teleprompter for his official address. There was a lot of that he promised to do, but a lot of that he also left out purposely later, revealed in an off-script speech to supporters that was actually longer than his inaugural address. Here are 4 takeaways and key moments from Trump's formal and informal addresses. I want to talk about that for just a sec because, I said this first term, and I said this during the rallies too, and some of this was from the rally that I attended. Teleprompter Trump is Trump at his best. And I don't like a lot of what he says. I'm not a big fan of the spending and everything else that goes along with that, but I will give credit where credit is due. And Teleprompter Trump is part of the best form because, he's got somebody else writing the speech for him. He knows how to deliver. He knows what lines to highlight on to get his base riled up. He knows how to take the words of somebody else and use them to paint a brighter future for America. But then he goes and does off-the-cuff shit and then spoils most of it. All right, here are the 4 takeaways. Number 1, the country got a better idea of what Trump will focus on. Trump said he would quickly sign an executive order related to national deportations, energy tariffs, and more. He said he would declare a national emergency at our southern border, halting immigration and deporting criminal immigrants. We will do at a level that nobody's ever seen before. He also promised he would declare a national emergency, would rescind the Green New Deal, and mandate to produce more electric vehicles, which, as far as I know, the Green New Deal actually never got passed. So I don't know what there was to rescind. In other words, you'll be able to buy the car of your choice, he said. He pledged to create an external revenue service to level tariffs against other countries' goods. You were doing so well. And then you had to propose another government agency. Bad. Trump argues those measures would help build American prosperity. We're going to talk about tariffs later too, because I've had a love-hate relationship with them since I figured out what the actual definition of them was. Though he said post-election that it would be hard to lower prices of inflation were consistently shown to be many Americans' top concerns. There was a lot he didn't talk about in his formal address, notably January 6th and his promises of political retribution, but he did that later because of course he did. You need to stop talking about January the 6th. I mean, it's good that you didn't do it in the official speech. And political retribution, I've already said that would be my turning point against the Trump admin. In the lead up to the election, Trump promised political retribution against many of his critics, but it was and remains unclear how far he will go and how, or if, or when he will follow through. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the DOJ and our governments will end. I was going to talk about J6 hostages. Trump said in Emancipation Hall at the Capitol after his formal address, with Mike Johnson standing off to his left. But it's actions, not words that count. You're going to see a lot of action. Trump delivered sharp criticism of the outgoing admin right in front of Biden and Harris. Good. I'm happy with that. Is that the 4th one? Where's the 4th point? They promised me 4. There it is. Democrats tried to show respect for the office and the peaceful transfer of power, but they couldn't all hold back their reactions at some more eye-opening moments. Despite Trump falsely claiming to have won 2020, despite January 6th, and despite Biden repeatedly calling him a threat to democracy, Biden and Democratic officials participated in the inauguration ceremonies as an endorsement of the peaceful transfer of power. Biden, earlier in the day, even invited the Trumps to the White House for tea, a tradition that Trump did not extend to Biden 4 years ago. At the inaugural address, some true colors showed, if only very briefly. Trump nodded to his improvements in the election with Black and Latino voters, particularly men. To the Black and Hispanic communities, thank you for the trust and love that you gave me, Trump said, adding, "We set records, and I will not forget it." Trump noted his inauguration was taking place on MLK Jr. Day and vowed, "We will strive to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true." To that, Biden, seated behind Trump, could be seen showing what could be described as a smirk of bemusement. So, there you go. There's NPR's 4 takeaways. Vong says, I gotta disagree. One of the biggest reasons, if not the biggest, is his ability and indeed inclination to speak without a teleprompter. It means he's not just reading the words that his puppet masters, whoever you may believe they are. Personally, I believe at least some of them change from politician to politician, but that's just me. Trump speaking without a script means you're getting his unfiltered personal opinion. That I get, and I appreciate that at rallies, but teleprompter Trump also stays on topic and does not veer off into a lot of the things that he veers off into. I think the best line walking on that was his appearance on Rogan right before Election Day. Because he got off topic a little bit, but Joe was there and could rein him back in and say, hey, no, we got to stay on this topic, which I very much appreciated. Newsweek thinks it's a big deal that Ye was not at the inauguration. Oops, wrong screen. From Maggie Eckberg. Ye has never been shy about his support for Trump, so his absence from the inauguration had people wondering, where was Ye? Turns out, the rapper allegedly wasn't welcome at the event unless he issued another public statement, something he had no interest in doing. It's the censorship stigma, Ye told the podcast host Justin LaVoy in a clip reportedly from an upcoming episode of Respectfully Justin that played on a big screen during a Grammy after party on Sunday, February 2nd. I was going to go to the inauguration. They told me I had to write another apology and say, again, that I wasn't an anti-Semitic. Yeah. I kind of figured that was where they were going to go with that. And again, I think a lot of that is like what Fuentes does, and Kanye was just saying wild off the wall shit because it gets him views. Alright, coming from the Hill, I wanted to just touch on this because this is a lot of the blue and on bullshit that we're going to be hearing for the next few years. Chuck Todd on Un-American Elon Musk, 5-alarm fire, because there's apparently a rumor mill that's starting off the left that our actual president right now is Elon Musk, and the only reason that we have Trump right now is because Elon cannot be elected directly due to his South American birth. It sounds an awful lot to me like they're just trying to find a reason that they lost without addressing the fact that they've turned into the party of big money interests and smug. From Dominic Mastrangelo. Did I say South American? Yes, it is South African. You are correct. If I did, it was a slip of the tongue. Former NPC political pundit and moderator of Meet the Depressed, Chuck Todd, Chuck Todd, is railing against Elon and his recent efforts to trim spending and make major alterations to a large swath of the federal government. If democracy is quote-unquote left-wing ideology to Elon Musk, I mean, this man is un-American as far as my definition of America is, Todd said on an episode of fellow pundit Chris Cillizza's podcast. The fact that, people aren't offended by this man's actions, I mean, it shows you how much he has helped successfully destroy this trusted information ecosystem, because this is a 5-alarm fire. Elon Musk is a 5-alarm fire, and the country doesn't even realize it yet, he added. Musk was tapped by Trump to lead a new Department of Government Efficiency and has sparked widespread pushback and confusion amongst government officials with plans to offer buyouts to a large amount of federal workers and cut off aid to foreign countries. The billionaire tech and media mogul has said such reforms are needed to help achieve Trump's agenda and has criticized the agency, or U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, we'll be talking about that later, his latest target, as a radical left political psyop. And I think a lot of people are panicking mostly over Musk. And it's not because he wants to go and cut the spending, because a lot of these people have promised to cut the spending going back into the Nixon years. And even before that. But the issue, and I am a big fan of cutting the spending. That's one of my biggest harping points that I've had basically since the omnibus debacle all the way back in 2018. It's part of the reason I didn't want to vote Trump this time through, and only did so because of Harris being installed as the Democratic nominee. But what I think makes these people more afraid with Musk, because the Department of Government Efficiency in and of itself is not an official government agency. It would need congressional approval, it would need a budget, it would need funding from the government to do so, to be beholden to the government, of course. It needs a list of things to actually become an official cabinet and government agency. But it's been, and Trump reminded the world in a speech the other day, it is an advisory position because of the fact that it can't be made an official government position. Number one. So Elon himself has no power, no ability to go back and cut any of the spending. But he has power to the public because people know what he is, who he is, what it is that he does, and people listen to him whether they love him or hate him. And the danger, I think, is coming from a lot of this, and where F. Chuck Todd is trying to come back out and push this narrative that Elon himself is a danger to society, democracy, and the world, is the fact that he's showing what the spending is, where it's going, and what it's being used for. And a lot of people blissfully just believed, especially on the left, that every tax dollar that they pay is just going in and going directly out to the poor and to social net programs. And that's never been the case. I would still be against the government spending if it was only going to social net programs, but I wouldn't be calling them evil over it. Let's be clear. Because I think that people should be able to donate to that stuff voluntarily, not forced at gunpoint through taxation to go and take it. And my feelings aside with that, though, I think a lot of people would feel better about it if that's just all they were doing were social safety net programs. But that's not what they're doing. They're bombing children in Yemen and Iraq and Afghanistan. They're propping up governments. They're toppling governments around the world and reshaping the world in a view that they want to see by force if necessary. They're using the Department of Justice against political enemies and dissidents. And a lot of these people don't want that out in the open. Alright, let's keep going. One of the first orders of business of the new admin. Foreign aid freeze results in mass layoffs that could crash the industry. One of the first things that happened to the Trump admin was after Marco Rubio was confirmed by the Senate, unanimously, by the way. His first order of business was to freeze all federal foreign aid for a period of 90 days, except to Egypt and Israel. I'm sure there are a lot of people in the comment section on YouTube and over on the audio platforms who have their own theory as to why we're continuing to fund Israel. I'm not going to go into that, partially because this video is on YouTube. I'll let you guys put that in the comment section. As far as Egypt goes, that actually is a good idea. I know that, again, I'm very against foreign aid as it is. But with Egypt, part of the foreign aid that goes to them does keep the Suez Canal open because, well, we're the protectorate of the Suez Canal. So it gives them money that they can use to maintain a canal that we as Americans are basically using for shipping. Our own personal shipping. More American goods go through the Suez Canal than go to any other country in the world. So yeah, that's just basically our trip, saving our trip around Africa to get us cheap goods from foreign countries even faster. So it's understandable why they would go with Egypt. You can form your own theories on what's going on with Israel, of course. This is from Maggie Miller and Carmen Pawn. The Trump admin's halt on foreign aid is starting to hollow out international development groups and private federal contractors that carry out aid missions abroad and threatens to cause long-lasting damage to the U.S. engagement around the world. Last month, the State Department ordered an immediate pause on U.S. foreign aid for 90 days and issued stop work orders on nearly all existing foreign assistance awards. This swift decision has effectively left many government contractors and global aid providers, including groups that supply HIV and AIDS care, provide child health services, and set up education programs, fight food insecurity and other disinformation, or encounter disinformation in developing nations struggling to operate or pay their workers. 8 U.S.-based individuals who work with in the foreign aid sector, all granted anonymity due to concerns about retaliation from the admin. Anonymous sources, again, told Politico that foreign aid freeze had undermined their ability to carry out global aid efforts. Some predict that the thousands of foreign aid professionals across the industry may soon be out of work. I can't even begin to describe how cataclysmic it is. Everyone is furloughing or laying off staff, said one person. It's almost 5,000 people. And it's just starting. The U.S. is the largest provider of humanitarian assistance globally, deploying billions through multiple agencies, including the U.S. Agency for International Development. The majority of USAID's funds are awarded competitively through contracts, grants, or cooperative agreements with international development groups and private federal contractors, which makes this the only government agency and government contractor that has to bid. These organizations often pay out of pocket to support their missions abroad and are reimbursed by the federal government, but a break in federal funding for these critical programs has left many organizations in crisis mode. It may take months or years for some of these federal contractors and NGOs to recover, while others do not have enough funding to survive the 90-day freeze. We're currently looking at the possibility of many hundreds of seasoned professionals in the humanitarian and development of human rights field going completely out of business, said a senior executive for an aid group. One person who spoke to Politico said their group had not received federal funding for more than a month. That sounds like another issue because the Trump admin has actually only been going for 2 weeks. Another individual said they expected multiple non-government organizations to declare bankruptcy this week. A third blamed what they said was a 30-day world of development, where the organizations are paid out by the federal government month to month. If that lapses, funds run out fast, making the situation urgent. Every company has lost so much now as a result of offering these furloughs. One person who works in the industry said, even if they start back up, say 2 months from now, there's likely going to be very few implementations. They will have no more staff. So the reasoning behind this, of course, was to stop, to look at all of the foreign funding that's going out around the world and determine what it's being used for and whether or not it's an actual humanitarian mission or... I hate to come back out, and again, I'm trying to keep this as politically neutral as possible, but to make sure that none of this is money laundering for big government NGOs and non-governmental agencies. And I'm not going to lie to you and say that I know what's going to happen at the end of any of this, because I don't. I don't know how many of these organizations are going to be picked back up in 90 days, How many of them are going to be refunded? How many of them are going to be back on the schedule for this? Because there's no way of knowing right now. It's going to be an interesting time. I would like to see many of the benefactors from this, and many of the people who called for a stop to taxation, foreign funding, especially in the high dollar billionaire area, put their money where their mouth is and actually put up some private charity for this. To keep some of this going without the government skimming off the top as they do. More in USAID, U.S. aid agencies in upheaval during foreign assistance freeze and staff departures. From Matthew Lee and Ellen Nickermeyer over at the Associated Press. Trump admin changes have upended the U.S. agency, charged it with providing humanitarian aid to countries overseas. With dozens of senior officials put on leave, thousands of contractors laid off, and a sweeping freeze imposed on billions of dollars in foreign assistance. Democratic senators warned the Trump admin Friday against any effort to eliminate the U.S. Agency for International Development as an independent agency, responding to growing fears among its supporters that such plans may be in the offing. Chris Murphy was one of a half dozen Democrats on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to argue in statements and on social media that Trump would have no legal authority to dissolve the agency. I don't think that he has the legal authority to dissolve the agency, but I do think that he has the legal authority to alter how it's funded and how it operates. I think that Miller is right. I don't think he can actually outright get rid of the agency, because it is congressionally approved. Aid organizations say the funding freeze and deep confusion over what U.S.-funded programs must stop work as a result has left them agonizing over whether they could continue operating programs such as those providing round-the-clock nutritional support to extremely malnourished infants and children, knowing that closing the doors means many of these children would die. Current and former officials at the State Departments and USAID say staffers were invited to submit requests for exemption or to exempt certain programs from the foreign aid freeze, which Trump imposed January 20th. And the State Department detailed how to execute on January 24th. 3 days later, at least 56 senior career USAID staffers were abruptly placed on admin leave. 3 officials said that many of those put on leave were lawyers involved in determining what programs might qualify for waivers, helping to write proposals and submitting those waiver requests as they believed they had been invited to do so. The officials spoke on condition of anonymity for fear of reprisal. A Trump admin directive that aid organizations interpret as a gag order has left them unwilling to speak publicly for fear of permanently losing U.S. funding. I don't think there's actually a fear of that. I just think that there's dramatics being involved to make this admin look more evil than it actually is. Grab one from Fox News. This is on the ICE raids. Oklahoma superintendent who brawled with CNN over ICE entering schools doubles down. Deported together. From Peter Panito and Adam Shaw. Oklahoma State School Superintendent Ryan Walters pushed back after a clash on CNN over his openness to allowing immigration and customs enforcement officers into schools, with Walters doubling down and rejecting sanctuary schools. Walters had told local media that he would not rule out allowing federal agents into schools to remove illegal immigrants amid an ongoing deportation operation since Trump took office. The Trump admin has lifted a Biden-era sensitive places mandate, which prevented agents from entering schools and amid concerns that illegal immigrants could use such places to hide from enforcement. It has sparked pushback from some local officials. We'll talk about that in just a moment. However, Walters, in an interview with Fox News Digital, said such moves could be necessary to avoid family separation. Are the Democrats and now the left-wing media the party of family separation? If you have adults that are going to be deported from this country, do you not want the Trump admin to know where their kids are, where they're enrolled in school, so that if the family is to be deported, they're actually deported together, he asked. Part of the problem with that, of course, is the fact that a lot of the children are U.S. citizens. It led to a furious back and forth with CNN host Brianna Keeler, who asked him if it would be traumatic for kids. Do you think it would be traumatic for students to witness a raid in their schools and students forcibly removed from their school? Do you think that would be traumatic? Walters answered, I think that would be traumatic. What would be traumatic, rather, is if you didn't give Trump the information necessary to keep the families together. So what would you prefer is, what you would prefer is to just deport the parents and have the kids have no idea what happened to their parents, and then he was cut off. That's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you, that's not at all what I'm asking you, Superintendent. Keeler interrupted again. So, I have a different issue with the sensitive places mandate and the blocking of sending the ICE agents into the schools. And it's the same argument that a lot of the people on the Israeli side of the October 7th conflict and a lot of right-wing media, but I repeat myself, and Ben Shapiro all like to talk about as well, and that's the fact that if you tell these people exactly what places are immune from federal agents coming in and doing raids in, then that's where they're going to go. And yes, they're going to hide behind children in order to avoid being deported. Just like a lot of people on the right claim that ICE likes to, or sorry, not ICE, the Palestinians, the Gazans, and Hamas like to do. If you give detailed instructions of what places can't be raided, then the people who are breaking the laws are going to go into the places that can't be raided. And yes, they will hide behind the children when they do. As far as the family separation thing goes, that's, again, part of the big issue that goes along with that is the fact that, yes, these kids are U.S. citizens. And even as minors are afforded the rights guaranteed in our Bill of Rights, including Fourth Amendment protections. So I'm kind of on both sides of this one. From VIN News, which I don't know where this is out of, but we do have a confirmationary story out of CBS as well. So we'll just read from this one first, and then we'll go into the CBS ones. Standout erupts on LA freeway as protesters waving Mexican flags block traffic, from Ruben Rosenfeld. A tense standoff between LAPD and a group of protesters waving Mexican flag unfolded on the 101 today, bringing traffic to a halt and drawing citywide attention. The protesters, numbering in the dozens, have taken to the busy highway, waving a large Mexican flag and chanting slogans. Immigrants. I'm going to tell you this right off the bat. If you want to be taken seriously over the fact that you want to stay in this country, you want to be American citizens, you hate Mexico so much, I would start by not waving the flag of the country that you fled from while you're protesting on the highway. I get that you're trying to do it as a heritage thing or whatever, but I mean, if you want to be taken seriously in this thing, wave the American flag. You want to be American so bad. Although I think that some of this was a Fed organized operation to try to get Mr. Trump to go back and invoke the Insurrection Act. You know, just like the St. George riots. The people who were out there rioting didn't necessarily care about the fact that of police brutality. It's just the people that organized this and made sure that it hit every single TV channel wanted Mr. President to go back and invoke the Insurrection Act, so then they could go back and say, see, he's the dictator that we told you that he was when you elected him. Look, he's cracking down on peaceful protests. And realistically, I wouldn't even bother, because right away, that was the first thing a lot of people were calling for was, well, get the military involved. The military will clear that out. Bring the National Guard in. I'm like, no. LA voted for this. They said they wanted these people here. If they can't get back and forth to work, then they can get out and have a discussion with these people. Air their grievance over the fact that they can't go up and down the 101. We don't need military for that. Go have the conversation with them. One passerby remarked, if they love Mexico enough to wave the flag, why not make it a 3-hour drive to the border instead of disrupting our city? Yeah, that one I didn't quite understand either. But I think that the people who organized this wanted to make sure that all of racist middle America looked at that flag and said, damn the Mexicans, they gotta go back out there and get down there and are taking our jobs and things like that. Mr. Trump, we voted for you. Go invoke that Insurrection Act. Stop that protest. That's what they were looking for. Couple more details from CBS News. Protesters gather in downtown LA over ICE raids for second straight day. From Julie Sharp and Dean Fioresi. Protests over the recent ICE raids and deportations continue Monday as demonstrators march along streets throughout downtown LA, leading to LAPD issuing dispersal order in the early evening. Yeah, tell me how that went over. The large group, calling for a national day of action, could be seen through aerial footage walking in the middle of Spring Street, moving along to block an intersection at Chickahern Court and 11th Street, all while waving Mexico flags and carrying protest signs. Demonstrators on Monday assembled at City Hall. According to LAPD, the group had gathered support the nationwide initiative, A Day Without Immigrants. Elizabeth Enriquez from Monrovia joined a Monday demonstration. The message is to the people, don't be scared, and that we have rights as a community and as immigrants, don't be scared. By early afternoon, about 1,000 demonstrators filled the Spring and Main Street overpasses of the 101 as police blocked the freeway ramps to prevent the marchers from moving onto the roadway. On Sunday, thousands of demonstrators gathered for the same cause and created some traffic disruptions as they blocked the South Main Street Bridge and closed the 101 for hours. The LAPD had earlier called the demonstration peaceful and reported that Spring Street, Main Street, LA Street, and Arcadia Street and the 101 were under major gridlock by Sunday afternoon. Which, I mean, that's a normal Sunday to begin with in LA. Police ultimately declared an unlawful assembly and forced the groups to disperse. The freeway fully reopened on Sunday night. On Monday, LAPD again declared unlawful assembly at around 4:45 p.m., leading to the try and disperse the massive crowd still gathered hours after the demonstration began. All persons who remain at Arcadia, Main, Spring, and LA are subject to arrest. Please leave the area, said a post on X from LAPD's Central Division, directing people to exit the area northbound to Cesar Chavez Avenue. Their decision came after officers alleged that members of the crowd began to throw bottles and rocks at them, while demonstrators say that police initiated the outbreak. So, I do stand differently from a lot of conservative people on the mass deportations and the ICE raids to an extent. Now, if you have somebody, a warrant, you know that yes, this person has defied their immigration order, their deportation order, or their court date or anything else, you've got a picture of this person, you can identify this person, then yes, I'm all in. Go grab them, deport them, bring them back over the border. Part of the problem that I had with the raids and the mass deportations is, and it comes down to the Fourth Amendment side of things, both for American citizens who happen to be brown, but also for the people in general. I mean, you go just kick down a door because there's a suspicion that you're hiding immigrants under the floorboards, or I'm being exaggerative on this one to say it like that, but you've got the suspicion of immigrants under the floorboard and things like that. So the question comes to be, how do you come in and get them, know that they're there, without violating the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment, your rights to unlawful search and seizure and due process? Because you do still have those rights in this country, and they're God-given. They're executed by the government. Yes, I understand that, but they're God-given, the ability to defend yourself. It does raise the question on where do your rights come from? Do they come from the government or do they come from the Creator? And I don't want to go down the path of they come from the government. Now, mind you, I do want to see a large amount of the people who came to this country illegally removed from this country. But I know that we have to go through certain processes, both to protect them and to protect the people who are citizens of this government, because once you start to upend your right to due process, your right against unlawful search and seizure, if they can do it to your unlawful immigrants, then they're not very far removed from being able to do it to you again. And that's part of the reason this country was founded, was because we were sick of the British government doing it to us. The J6ers from NBC News. Trump pardons roughly 1,500 criminal defendants charged in the J6 Capitol Selfie Fest. From Ryan Riley. President Trump on Monday issued roughly 1,500 pardons and commuted the sentences of 14 of his supporters in connection with the Selfie Fest on Capitol Hill on January 6, 2021, when thousands of them awkwardly walked into the Capitol with their phones in their faces and did a whole bunch of this. Trump commuted the sentences of individuals associated with the Pride Boys and the Oath Breakers, who were convicted of seditious conspiracy. He then issued a full and complete and unconditional pardon to all other individuals convicted of offenses related to events that occurred at or near the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. A category that included people who assaulted law enforcement officers, and this is the big scary thing that NBC News is going to try to come back out here and tell you that that's the reason this is such a horrible thing and the whole republic is going to fall apart because of this. Now, the Oath Breakers and the Pride Boys probably should have stayed in there because no quarter for federal agents. This is a big one, Trump said in the Oval Office while signing the document, adding, "We hope they come out tonight, frankly." The family of Enrique Tarrio, the Pride Boys leader and known federal informant, by the way, convicted of seditious conspiracy, said in a media statement on Tuesday that he was released late Monday from FCI Pollock, a medium security in Louisiana, and expected to arrive in Miami on Tuesday. Tarrio was serving 22 years in federal prison after he was convicted of seditious conspiracy. Pelosi, who was speaker during the Selfie Fest, called Trump's actions an outrageous insult to our justice system and law enforcement officers who protected the Capitol that day. It's shameful that the president has decided to make this his top priority, and the abandonment and betrayal of police officers who put their lives on the line to stop an attempt to subvert the peaceful transfer of power, she said in a statement. Despite the president's decision, we must always remember the extraordinary courage and valor of law enforcement heroes who stood in the breach and ensured that democracy survived the dark day. Immediately after the Selfie Fest, Trump sought to distance himself from the Selfie Fest, saying those who broke the law should be held accountable. But over the next few years, a new narrative emerged, and Trump soon began openly signaling his support for the rioters, calling them hostages, which in a lot of cases that there were. Now, my thing on releasing all the January 6th prisoners was that a lot of them were still awaiting trial at this point, which meant that they were being held in lockup, waiting for trial, and they have been since 2021. That's number one. The big part of the problem that I have with this. So yes, coming back out and letting them out, because the government can't try them in a speedy and expeditious manner. That's a big one for me, and I do think that yes, those people needed to be out at this point. But I said, and I posted on X when this happened, and so many people were freaking out about this. And we'll look at another article and just a couple articles here talk about how horrible these people were, how bad they were, and how they have records. Some of them had records already. Oh my God! And the thing that I said to this. And this was the same thing when a lot of the right-wingers were freaking out about all the drug dealers that Biden pardoned on his way out the door. His big blanket pardon, which I didn't have as big of a problem with that one either, is that if these people are as bad as you say that they are, if these are the true dregs of society who can't be reformed and have to stay in prison for the rest of their lives, and everything else that they were trying to say in this, and again, I'm saying this to both left-wingers and right-wingers on this one, they're going to offend again. They'll be back in prison under their own volition again in the very near future. If they're as bad as you tell me that they are, they will re-offend. And they can't be pardoned for that, whatever it is that they re-offend on. Resulted in the largest FBI investigation ever, with criminal charges against more than 1,500 people and criminal convictions against more than 1,100 defendants. Many low-level riot defendants were sentenced to probationary periods after having been convicted of misdemeanor offenses like unlawful parading inside the Capitol, which is what Stephen Ignoramus got hit with, was basically unlawful parading. I think he caught, and I'd have to check with him again, a trespass and a parading. But hundreds of others who committed serious felonies, such as assaulting police with deadly or dangerous weapons, got significant prison sentences. At the time Trump issued the pardons, there were 700 defendants who had either never received sentences or had already completed their sentences, meaning pardons or commutations would have little practical impact on them beyond restoring voting rights and gun rights for those who were convicted of felonies. It also clears their records. More than 600 were sentenced to incarceration, but only a small fraction of them are still behind bars. Many of them, who are in the custody of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, were convicted of violent attacks on police officers, protecting the Capitol during a Selfie Fest in which January 6 defendants were armed with firearms, incorrect, stun guns, possibly, flagpoles that they had from the scene. Fire extinguishers, bike racks, batons, a metal whip, office furniture, pepper spray, a tomahawk axe. I feel like that would have been a bigger deal in the news. A massive Trump billboard, Trump flags, pieces of lumber, crutches, and even an explosive device. Again, I feel like that would have been bigger news. But no, nobody had a firearm at this thing. That is a false statement. I do think that there should have been some more discretion on who the pardons all went to, but in the fact that so many of them were sitting without conviction still yet, as of 4 years later, and the time frame involved. Like, if this had been only a couple, 3 weeks after all the conviction, then yes, I would say go back, go through, pencil through, find what it is they did, and make sure you keep the actual violent ones locked up because they were doing violent things. But that's over 1,500 cases that you have to sit and go through, while people still sit and rot in a DC county lockup. Not county lockup, but municipal lockup. So while I might not agree with it, I understand why it was done the way that it was done. And again, if these people are so bad, then they'll reoffend. Just like our friends over at NPR are about to tell us here, criminal records of January 6 rioters pardoned by Trump include rape and domestic violence. From Tom Dreisbach. On his first day in office, Trump granted clemency to every person charged or convicted for their role in January 6th, even those convicted of violently assaulting police officers. But Trump's pardons and commutations for people he has called patriots do not wipe away certain defendants' extensive criminal records. Of course they didn't. Because he was only pardoning the crime, the immediacy crime, that he views as a basically political witch hunt. Of course they didn't wipe away the rest of their records. If the government came back and trumped up charges on me because I'm a political dissident and mostly live my life as anti-government, and the next administration came in and pardoned me for whatever trumped up charge they put on me, it wouldn't erase my arrest record from when I was 18. I wouldn't expect it to. What I did when I was 18 and ultimately got acquitted for, or dismissed for, had absolutely nothing to do with the trumped up charges that they were going to try to put on me. No shit that it didn't erase their criminal records. While many people had no criminal records prior to committing what they call crimes on January 6, NPR has identified dozens of defendants with prior convictions or pending charges for crimes including rape, sexual abuse of a minor, domestic violence, manslaughter, production of child sexual abuse material, and drug trafficking. So, NPR's case here, by the way, is that we should have just kept these people in indefinitely until we got through all their trials and everything on something that is probably politically motivated because a few people in the crowd had very, very bad criminal records before any of this. That's actually the argument that NPR is making right now. One of those defendants, Matthew Huddle, was recently shot and killed by law enforcement in Indiana during a traffic stop just days after receiving a pardon for his role in the Capitol riot. Huddle has an extensive criminal history that demonstrates a pattern of practice of disrespecting and disobeying the rule of law, which is consistent with his actions on January 6, 2021, persecutors said. I would love to see the body cam footage of that traffic stop. I'm willing to bet that we're never going to see it. It's never going to get released. And it might not even exist. Skip that one too. Well, we're already at 150. This guy, who said nothing during the pardons of the drug dealers and everybody else during the Biden admin. Rep. Jason Crow, I don't ever want to hear the president or vice president talking about backing the blue and supporting law enforcement. They just released 1,000+ felons and cop beaters. Bullshit. Let's listen to his propaganda, though.
Well, I don't want to hear Donald Trump or J.D. Vance or anyone else in this administration talk about backing the blue, talk about supporting law enforcement when they just released over 1,000 cop beaters, people who brutally beat our law enforcement. Yeah, I was there. I saw it firsthand. America saw it firsthand. The video is available for anybody to view. The brutality, the injuries, over 150 of these officers still have injuries, several of whom lost their lives because of the injuries and trauma incurred on that day.
No, they didn't.
We even had the Fraternal Order of Police come out and issue a statement condemning the pardons. So clearly they're not interested in supporting law enforcement. This was a political decision and a really...
So it was a decision to put these people in jail, so you got that going for you. What's magical about it is that I don't really care what Representative Jason Crow wants. Another propaganda article from the BBC. I'm not even going to go into this, but we'll go over the headline because, again, they're trying to use the actions and the sentences of a few people in the crowd, people that I don't actually agree with. And again, I made my point clear that I think that Tario should have stayed in prison for life because he's a federal informant. But the argument that all 1,500 of these people should stay in prison with records forever because of what a few people did prior to January 6th. That's the huddle one that I talked about earlier, so I covered that. Don't have to go through that one. All right, the next one on the federal budget here from Axios. Trump offering buyouts to all federal workers. From Mark Caputo and Emily Peck. The White House issued a memo Tuesday offering to pay federal workers who don't want to return to the office through September 30th. As long as they resign by February 6th. Where's my cursor? There it is. The action, first reported by Axios, marks an acceleration in Trump's already unprecedented purge of the federal workforce. The Office of Personnel Management described the offer as an administrative leave with pay and benefits. Employees who wish to resign were told, select reply to an email that was sent out, a draft resignation email. You must reply from your government account, or reply from an account other than your government or military account will not be accepted. Type the word resign into the body of the reply email and hit send. The subject line, and some of the wording echoed an email Elon Musk sent to Twitter employees in 2022, giving them a similar ultimatum: either leave or stay and become hardcore, The Verge points out. Musk himself appeared to acknowledge this in a post on X on Tuesday evening. So, I actually think that this is the right way to go. Now, given the union work background that a lot of Trump supporters have, many of them converted Democrats, converted union Democrats, who would never dream of or think about going and working for the government, given the situation that a lot of them in, it's fair to say that a lot of the federal workforce currently would have been anti-Trump. And I think that this is, for the most part, a fair way to part ways with them in a way that really makes everyone happy. They get almost a year's worth of pay, over a half a year's worth of pay. It gives them 8 months to go out and find a new job that pays similar to what it is that they were making for, while they still get their paycheck for those 8 months. And they've basically been told, I get that you don't want to work with me. You've been told from the beginning of the first time you set foot in the federal workforce that I'm Hitler, I'm Mussolini, I'm the devil. Here's your chance. You can leave, no hard feelings. Go out and find yourself another job. I'll pay you. And we just part ways, amicably. Of course, it's not being spun that way, but that's the way that I'm reading this here. The government-wide email being sent today is to make sure that all federal workers are on board with the new admin's plan to have federal employees in office and adhering to higher standards. We're 5 years past COVID, and just 6% of federal employees work full-time in office. This is unacceptable, a senior admin official tells Axios. This is also something that I kind of part ways with the government on, because I do think that if you can demonstrate that you're putting out the same kind of work effort that you would have put out in office, and you have the capability of doing so, like my job, you would have never, I have to be in office for my job. There's no way around that. Because I oversee what people do. And I have to actually be able to witness what it is that they do. But I do think that if a lot of people can work from home, get the same kind of work out of it. And I mean, part of this comes from the fact that I live with somebody who has a work from home job. I don't think the in-office requirement is there if you can effectively do your job from home. Now, a lot of these people, again, are not necessarily doing their job to the best of their potential while they're working from home. They're taking advantage of the system. I get that. But I don't think the answer is to force everybody into the office either. The White House expects a 5 to 10% of federal employees to accept the offer, which would potentially mean hundreds of thousands of people. The admin projects that buyouts could ultimately save taxpayers up to $100 billion a year. Why are there 1 million people working for the government? That's just quick mental math. 10% could mean up to hundreds of thousands of people. Why are there multiple million people working for the federal government? Can somebody explain that to me? The offer applies to all full-time federal employees except for military, the post office, and those working in ICE or national security. And here's the Axios spin. The memo is just the latest step of the White House's unprecedented move to push career federal workers out of their jobs, and observers say replace them with loyalists. Here's the deal. I've worked for people I couldn't stand. I have. And you know what I did? When I was working for the people that I couldn't stand, I spent every waking moment doing everything I could to get out of that job. You shouldn't be expected to work for somebody that you hate. And there's a lot of hatred with these people. And again, part of it's because of what they've been propagandized to. And part of it is legitimate belief that they have with them. So why expect them to work for somebody that they absolutely despise? And who, in their own minds, they believe absolutely despise them. That's not a good working relationship. That's toxic as fuck. On Monday, the admin offered more details on its plan to reclassify thousands of federal civil servants, stripping them of legal protections from firing in a memo to agency heads. The executive order and the guidance is a way to make it easier to fire civil servants and turn what had been career jobs into patronage jobs, said Sharon Parrott, head of the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities and a former Office of Management and Budget appointee under Obama. Yeah, that's an impartial person. The moves will almost surely lead many expert, knowledgeable career civil servants to withhold their best advice, Parrott tells Axios. And again, they're not doing their job to their full effect, so why not go and do something that they can do to their full effect? From Fox, the White House expecting spike in federal resignations as at least 20,000 take the buyouts. From Emma Colton, Brooke Singman. The White House is expecting a spike in federal resignations ahead of a Thursday deadline for a buyout offer, Fox News Digital has learned. Nearly all federal employees were offered a buyout as part of Trump's plan for government employees to physically work out of their offices, following years of remote work stemming from the pinko-pox pandemic. Government employees have until Thursday to take the offer, with Trump admin expecting an influx of resignations in the next 2 days. And again, where's the downside here? The number of deferred resignations is rapidly growing, and we're expecting the largest spike 24 to 48 hours before the deadline, a White House official told Fox News Digital on Tuesday morning. Axios reported earlier Tuesday that roughly 20,000 federal employees have taken the offer, accounting for about 1% of the federal government's workforce. Why, again, are there 2 million people working for the federal government? That's 0.6% of the population, by the way, including children, that works for the federal government. Why? And again, for 20,000 of these people to go back and take this up rather than working for somebody that they hate, wondering if their job is on the line, and then at least having 8 months of social safety net to do something with, that's a pretty good deal. From CBS News, because of course they did. Some GOP officials say Trump admin's federal workers buyout program is illegal. From Jennifer Jacobs. Republican officials have been quietly pointing out that the Trump admin's so-called buyout program is illegal, but they doubt that congressional Republicans will push back, sources told CBS on Friday. Many federal workers saw an email first thing Monday morning when they arrived at their desks that offered more details of the deferred resignation program. Some lawmakers have noted the offer to pay through September 30th violates the Anti-Deficiency Act, a law that prevents government from promising or spending money in excess of what Congress has made available. You were going to pay these people for careers. You've made this money available. Congress has funded the government only through mid-March, not through the end of the fiscal year, at the end of September. Really? This is where we're going to go? A spokesperson for the Trump admin's Office of Personnel Management has stressed that no federal employees' pay will be guaranteed with the deadline looming. In the new email with fork in the road in the subject line is the third sent by OPM on the resignation plan. It reads, the current funding bill for the federal government expires on March 14th. Will I still receive full pay and benefits if the money runs out? A. Any government shutdown could potentially affect any employee's pay regardless of whether he or she has accepted the deferred resignation offer. Moreover, if you accept the deferred resignation offer, you would still be entitled to back pay under the Government Employees Fair Treatment Act. So, there you go. It's going to be exactly the same as if they stayed on the workforce. They'll miss a couple of paychecks while the government shut down, and then they'll get all their back pay at the end. Problem solved. So, there you go with that one. Alright, we gotta jump ahead here. We're over 2 hours at this point, which I was a little bit afraid was gonna happen. So, we're gonna go a little bit ahead on this one, because there are some things that I still want to get to. I'm going to skip over the tariff stuff, because I will go on a spiel about that. RFK. I'm going to save some of this for next week, I think. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to save this for next week. We'll bookmark all this stuff and we'll do this then, because there is still some stuff that I want to get through, even if it's getting to be aged. But it's also 2 hours and 5 minutes into the recording. This one I wanted to get to. Tina Zimmerman over on X puts a post out that says, the bill to abolish the income tax and the U.S. has been introduced. And by the way, this is not some sort of a myth or a hoax or anything else, or a misread of a bill that came off of this. This is real. H.R. 25 to promote freedom and fairness and economic opportunity by repealing the income tax and other taxes, abolishing the IRS, and enacting a national sales tax to be administered primarily by the states. Sponsor is Representative Carter of Georgia 1 for the House Ways and Means Committee. The text is lengthy, admittedly. This is a long page bill because they do have to sit back and explain how they're going to get their appropriations, how it's going to be worked, calculated, etc. But the long and short of it is, yes, there's been a bill, and it's, as was pointed out in the Discord, it's been a bill that's been around for a long time. This is not the first time this has shown up from a Republican congressperson. And is this bill going to go anywhere? No, it is not. It's not even going to pass the House with a Republican majority. I can tell you that with fair certainty at this point. Because there are too many people whose pet projects, yes, in the GOP as well, depend on the funding that they get from these bills. So, it's a nice idea. Hopefully someday we can put it into law. But it will never happen. Alright, let's do a couple things I like and a couple things that I hate, and then I'll decide what it is I'm going to do with the leftover. And I'll have to have a conversation with my better half on how we're going to come back out and do this as well. So, it's not just me in the house anymore. So I do have to have the communication on what the schedule is going to be like. All right, we start, of course, with the rules of acquisition, which we have got to go back and figure out where we were at. Because it's been a few weeks. So let's kind of just scroll through here. I should have gone back to the last episode and figured out which one we were at. I'm reading. I know we're past the 60-second because I talked about that one. No, we weren't. We're not past the 60-second rule of acquisition. We might have to start over. Because I don't know where I was at on this one. We're going to put a pin in this. We'll come back to this one whenever we clear out the rest of the work, because then I can go back and again check at where we were at. So let's instead do a couple things I like and a couple things that I hate and take off. We're doing it live, folks, so sometimes things get on-air produced at the time that we're doing them. So a couple things that I like and then a few things that I hate today. This one comes from an account called History Nerd, which I'm not following, and I don't know why. I should be. This is the kind of stuff that I enjoy. So we're going to fix that right away. Now I'm following this person. But this was a lengthy one, and one of the things that I've always enjoyed was we get certain narratives as we're going through life. We get told things happen in a certain way. We're just supposed to sit and accept that they happen in a certain way and believe them without any question. One of those things is the Titanic. Now, the official prevailing narrative of the Titanic is just that the ship went out on its maiden voyage, hit an iceberg, went into the ocean, and 1,500 people just died because they call the thing unsinkable. But there are a few other things that are on board with this as well. And what I liked about this this lengthy thread, which Putz unwrapped in the Discord, if you guys are in the Discord, you want to go back and see this. What I like about it is that the poster of this thread didn't officially come out and say this happened because the proponents of the Federal Reserve were on the Titanic. What he did was he put the facts out there and let you make your own determination on this. Now, yes, I think it's awfully suspicious that JP Morgan canceled his trip at the last minute on this, while all of his political rivals and business rivals were on board, and three of the people were big proponents of the opponents of the Federal Reserve, which Morgan helped to found. I think that's worth looking into. And again, I'm not going to come out and say that, yes, this is 100% the reason that the Titanic sank. But I will say it's worth a second look. Absolutely. So, and that's where the thread went to. I'm going to TLDR this one because we are over the 2-hour mark at this one. But yeah, it's a lengthy thread explaining the fact that the Olympic had hit a military ship and was considered to be a loss and uninsurable. It was identical in most every way to the Titanic, owned by the same cruise line, and the cruise line got a massive insurance payout from the Titanic sinking. So, plus the opponents, rather, of the Federal Reserve were on board, and the business opponents of JP Morgan as well. we're on board. So that's your TLDR for this. It is linked in the Discord if you'd like to read it in its full. And our friend Putz put it as a thread unroller, so you don't even have to go sit and scroll through all of this to go back and see it. It's a good read, at least. Going back to Chuck Todd, we talked about him earlier on in the show. Chuck Todd is out. And I do want to wish him a happy retirement. I have agreed with Chuck Todd over the years, and I've disagreed with Chuck Todd over the years. I do think that he was a good journalist, and I think he was left-leaning, but I don't think he was as rabid as some of his NBC counterparts and CNN counterparts. He absolutely had biases, we all do. And I disagreed with him on a lot of those, but I liked his interviews, I liked his interview style. I thought he was an okay journalist. This is coming from the USA Today. Chuck Todd is leaving NBC News. Chief political analyst and former Meet the Depressed moderator announced the news in a memo shared with staff on Friday. The exit comes amid broad shifts in the TV news landscape as Trump begins his second term. In a memo to fellow NBC staffers, Todd teased his next chapter. There's never been a perfect time to leave a place that's been a professional home for so long, but I'm pretty excited about a few new projects that are on the cusp of going from pie in the sky to near reality. So I'm grateful for the chance to get a jump start on my next chapter during this important announcement, Todd sent a memo obtained Friday by the USA Today. He continued, the Chuck Toddcast is also coming with me. Thank you, NPC. Stay tuned for an announcement about its new home soon. Needless to say, I do plan to continue to share my reporting and unique perspective of covering politics with data and history as important baselines in understanding where we were, where we are, and where we are going. In a contrast with a lot of people who are politically in the same camp as me, I'm probably going to seek out wherever it is that Mr. Todd goes. Because, like I said, as much as I've disagreed with him over the years, I do think that he did well for what it was. And I'd like to see if, without having the NBC umbrella over his head, if he turns into full, rabid, raving, frothing at the mouth leftoid, or if he continues to be semi-moderate with this. So I'd be interested to see. Rachel Maddow with a hot take on this one. I'm not going to read the X with that. We're just going to watch the video and listen to what Rachel has to say. There's a reason this is on Things That I Like.
But beyond that, they appear to be targeting all the FBI agents who were involved in any of the cases brought against January 6th rioters. And to put this in perspective, the January 6th riot cases make up the largest single investigation ever in the history of the Bureau. The January 6th cases are the largest criminal caseload ever assembled by the Department of Justice. If they are going to try to purge every FBI agent who took any part in any one of these well over 1,000 cases, that's kind of the whole FBI. I mean, not every single member of the FBI, but certainly most of the FBI.
All right, Rachel, are you going to come back to me with a downside here somewhere? Is there going to be a negative in this somewhere? Because that sounded pretty positive to me. Where do we start? All right. And now we're going to do a few things that I hate. Thing that I hate to start off with. It's Reddit. So, I don't know where YouTube's rules are, whether or not I can read some of this out loud. I think there are a few of them that are tame enough that I can, but Reddit Lies posts a screenshot of several different screenshots of Reddit posts that have been cropping up all over Reddit very recently. Pocket Tornado says storm the White House and stop it while there's still time. That one I'm not going to read on YouTube because that's a direct call of action. The other one says it's going to be a beautiful day when the angry mobs enter the White House. A lot of beautiful patriots and love storming through the halls. That's a call to action. That one I think is on the safe side. Can we storm the White House and go after Trump and Musk? Will we get pardons and maybe even become heroes for saving the country? And that last one is a definite call to action. So even though it's formed in a question, and that last one I can't do. And Chancellor GM actually posted back as a reply on this one, says, how many of these users are feds trying to rile up discontent, and how many of them are just insane? To which I replied on that one and said, if it's feds, it's not to rile the people up per se, even though, yes, they are trying to do that. The end goal is to get the Insurrection Act invoked. These people need Trump to become the dictator to justify what they've been saying for the last 8 years. And I said the same thing when we talked about the LA riots in the beginning of the show. It's a lot of what we saw, Summer of Love, St. George riots, Kenosha riots. What were we hearing from the mainstream news at the time, and even a lot of Trump supporters? It's an insurrection. Invoke the Insurrection Act. Use the military. Use the National Guard. And then you're going to have wall-to-wall coverage of using the National Guard against civilians, turning the guns against civilians. This is what's going to go down in history. This is just like Germany in the 30s. I can already see the news coverage at that point, once the military gets involved. So, yes, that's definitely a thing that I hate. Ukraine called a fictional state by European presidential candidate. From Maya Merara. One of Romania's presidential candidates has called Ukraine a fictional state and said that the division of its territories is inevitable. In an interview with Romanian journalist Ion Cristo, published Wednesday on YouTube, Călin Georgescu spoke about the Russia-Ukraine war and how its borders could be redrawn, with Bucharest seizing some of Kiev's territory, according to the Kiev Independent. Newsweek reached out to Georgescu, Romania's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Ukraine, for a comment via email. Georgescu's statement could drastically change the relations between Ukraine and Romania if he is elected. Furthermore, his popularity indicates Romanians' attitudes towards Ukraine and their support for the war may have changed. Georgescu has opposed military support for the Ukraine, according to the Kiev Independent, and is the leading candidate ahead of May's presidential election. His stance on Ukraine conflicts with Romania's, as the country has been one of Ukraine's strongest supporters since the war broke out in February of 2022. Discussing the idea of redrawing Ukraine's borders, Georgescu said that 100% it will happen, and that the path is to something like this is inevitable. Ukraine is a fictional state, the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. And I put this in things that I hate because we're sitting here with the mainstream news media coming out here and screaming over the fact that any cessation of any peace talk at all, really at this point with Russia, is giving all of Ukraine over to Russia because Trump is Putin's puppet or something or other. Now, and I don't know enough about European politics to know what Romania's relationship is with Russia at this point. But there's never been any real effort to go back and take the main part of Ukraine in anywhere in this war, just the Donbass region. So I just sit here and see Romania trying to come back out and rile up and start an inter-European war. That, of course, the U.S. is going to have to go back and get involved in. Over an election, of all things. So. Let's talk about CalExit, which is a new CalExit and a different CalExit from the CalExit that I intended to talk about in my first one-off video that I ever made, right before the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting happened, and my channel took a completely different direction. New CalExit bid for California secession approved for signatures gathering in an effort to put the measure on the ballot. From Tim Fang over at CBS News. A new bid to place a measure on the ballot that could ask California voters to approve the state's secession from the U.S. has been cleared for signature gathering. Secretary of State Shirley Weber announced Thursday that a measure introduced by Marcus Evans of Fresno must receive more than 500,000 signatures by late July. According to the text of the measure, the state would require to create a 20-member state commission to study California's viability as an independent country in 2027 and to publish a report the following year. Members of the commission, who would be picked at random by the Secretary of State, would have to meet certain requirements such as being nominated by 100 registered voters and must have California residency for at least 5 years. So, they're doing this, and it's a temper tantrum. And they're going to come back out and try to threaten and say that, well, we hate the fascistic thing of Donald Trump, so we're just going to take our ball and go home because we have the 7th largest economy in the world. But I hate to tell you this, if you secede out from the U.S. in a huff like this, then what is our incentive going to be to trade for you? Your biggest customer is the rest of the country that you're attached to at this point. For everything that you actually do produce, which isn't a lot compared to the rest of the country. I am all for the ability to leave the country at will. I'm okay with secession. I am. But in that, there is a bit of reality that needs to be talked about, thought about, and addressed. If California thinks that they want to go back and secede and not just make a big political statement to say, hey, change the way your government's working, otherwise we're going to take our ball and go home, then I think they should be able to do so. But I don't see that this is what this is. And this is different from the initial CalExit thing that I had talked about. What I intended to talk about the first time I did a YouTube video where several California counties wanted to split off into 1 or 2 extra states to make sure that they had representation outside of what was being controlled by San Francisco, Sacramento, and Los Angeles. So, if your people want to do it, then do it. And the only thing that I'll have to say with that is if your people actually want to do it, then follow through with it. Don't sit back and cuck out the second you start to get your way in the government again. Alright, just a couple more, then we're out of here for the night. Keir Starmer announces terrorism legislation aimed at targeting incels. Let's listen.
This case is a sign. Britain now faces a new threat. Terrorism has changed. In the past, the predominant threat was highly organized groups with clear political intent, groups like Al-Qaeda. That threat, of course, remains. But now, alongside that, we also see acts of extreme violence perpetrated by loners, misfits, young men in their bedroom, accessing all manner of material online, desperate for notoriety. Sometimes inspired by traditional terrorist groups, but fixated on that extreme violence, seemingly for its own sake. Now, it may well be that people like this are harder to spot, but we can't shrug our shoulders and accept that. We can't have a national security system that fails to tackle people who are a danger to our values, our security, our children. We have to be ready to face every threat. And when I look through the details of this case, the extreme nature of the violence, the meticulous plan to attack young children in a place of joy and safety, violence clearly intended to terrorize, then I understand why people wonder what the word terrorism means. And so if the law needs to change to recognize this new and dangerous threat, then we will change it, and quickly. And we will also review our entire counter-extremist system to make sure we have what we need to defeat it.
Look, I don't think the answer to the people that you've bullied into staying into their rooms wanting revenge over you is to use the government to take revenge, or even preemptive revenge, over them. I don't think the answer is to use the government to bully the people you've already spent your lives bullying. So, good luck. I don't think it's going to work out well for you. And I think it's going to actually turn public sentiment against you. Which is fine. And the last one on things that I hate is, as we were talking about pardoning all the J6ers, we had another storming of a Capitol, this time in Minnesota. It was a small affair. The foo, who is at Politabunny, is saying Democrats have been defeated so badly that this is the best that they can do. So we're only going to watch a little bit of this. This is a 10-minute clip. But yes, this particular representative, which was, I'll grab her name, Representative Finke. Anyway, let's watch the video.
Whose house is this? Whose house is this? You chicken meatball-headed motherfucker. Whose house is this? Whose house is this? Whose house is this? Yeah, go ahead and kick me out. It'll be on every fucking news organization in the country. I'm done with this shit. You do not have quorum. You are not allowed to do this. And you know it. You're not just going to keep pushing the fucking line. You're just going to keep overstepping your bounds, just like y'all did last session when I had to sit there and listen to y'all motherfuckers talk about what burgers you like instead of giving us equal rights in Minnesota. I'm done with it. I sat through the whole trans refuge thing listening to you fucking lie about my community. I sat and listened to every Culver's fucking bullshit order instead of giving equal rights and bodily autonomy to all Minnesotans. I'm done with it. The Senate threw a big baby fucking tantrum at the end of the session last year. It was a goddamn clown show. And I'm tired of it. If y'all aren't going to respect decorum, if y'all aren't going to follow the fucking rules, then neither are we. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. I'm done with it. Get your good glamour shots there, motherfucker. I remember the shit that you said on the fucking floor. I remember the shit that you said, misgendering Lee Finke, lying about us. Go fuck yourself. I'm done with this. We're done. No, this is not a legitimate committee. I can stand in here and fucking yell all day. I don't give a shit. You want to drag me out? We're going to have a bunch of cameras on us, including that one, that we're going to put on all the news organizations. We're done. We're fucking done with it. Stop the coup! 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 You listen to us, motherfuckers! You work for us! You don't get to sit here and move in silence and smirk and act like a fucking smug asshole when you don't have quorum to even have this fucking committee. I'm done with it. No, don't bang your fucking gavel.
Well, that person seems charming. It also makes me want Culver's. When can I go over some Culver's? Double bacon cheeseburger sounds fantastic right now. And the article that goes with this, Minnesotans protest at the state capitol as Supreme Court prepares for hearing over House power dispute. From Frankie McLister. Thursday marks a turning point in the heated battle for control of the Minnesota House as the state Supreme Court will hear arguments related to the dispute. Ahead of the hearing, protesters at the state capitol shared their disapproval over House Republicans deciding to move forward in the legislative session with a one-seat majority despite one undecided seat. You chicken meatball-headed motherfucker. Chicken meatballs sound really good too right now. One protester said. The protester, who declined to comment, raged at House Republicans over transgender rights on Tuesday. Rep. Walter Hudson of Albertville, who took the video, thinks it was pre-planned. I think it was too. Because 8 hours prior to taking place, they were actively promoting it. The representative was actively promoting it on Twitter. Hudson said the participants in it are known as associates of Rep. Leigh Finke. Finke, DFL St. Paul, responded Wednesday saying, "I didn't participate or direct the protest action at the Capitol." Rep. Melissa Hortman, DFL Brooklyn Park, denounced the actions of disrupting meetings, calling it counterproductive. I'd say. At issue for Thursday's hearing was what constitutes a quorum, or the minimum number of lawmakers required to conduct any chamber business. Both parties are at odds over the definition, which is described in the state's constitution as a majority of each house of the legislature. So, and honestly, I don't think that got anything done. You got the news clip, you got to have, again, your little temper tantrum. And honestly, I think it made your argument look bad. But that's all that I have for the day. First day back after the move. Nice studio. Supposedly, and I'll have to talk with Mr. Fanning again to see if the sound panels are going to be coming anywhere in the near future. But we are going to try to take up some of this echo, because there is a bit of an echo in here, unfortunately. There are a couple things that I think we can do, and I think sound paneling will do well. And I do want to decorate that back wall in wood. Right now we're thinking reclaimed or brand new fence paneling, I think is going to be good. So make it look kind of warm and woody and nice for that. I think this is going to be great. I got to figure out what we're going to do with the camera angle, because I don't necessarily always want to have that facing towards that door. But that's a conversation for another day. And yeah, we'll be doing a lot more of this, hopefully for the next 30 years. I've always said that I would probably like to pass away on a live stream. Just drag me out of my chair. At a ripe old age. Doing what I love. Complaining about the government. But those are conversations to have for another time. I think we're going to find the outro music here and head out of here for the night. We'll come back to some of this stuff later. There it is. And with that, thanks everybody who came by and hung out over here in the live chat. With any luck, BioShock tomorrow. By the way, we didn't drop any frames this time through either, so that was kind of cool. It worked. The internet's holding up. Something that I never thought we could do with Wi-Fi connection, so that's really cool as well. This episode will be up on the audio platforms yet later on tonight, so if you only caught a moment of this, and you want to go back and listen to the whole thing, you can grab it on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. You can go catch it there. And later on this week as well, there's going to be a great conversation that I had with Paul Thompson, author of Curse of the Rat King, and a host of other stuff that he's done. So, very excited to share that. That's going to be a great time. And I hope you guys enjoy the listen for that. I have another great guest lined up for next week. I'm trying to find my third chair for that one. That's going to be fun as well. That's going to be recorded on a Tuesday afternoon and then released hopefully again by that coming Friday. So we're getting back into the full of things here. I love doing those interviews. It's going to be a great time. Right now, on schedule, BioShock for tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to finish that game or not tomorrow night. I don't know how much longer that game is, honestly. It's weird. I keep saying that's only 12-ish or so hours, but they're saying a lot longer than that. Anyway, take care. Thanks so much. Have a great night. We'll see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Thanks again. Have a fantastic night. We'll see you here next time for more news and more headlines. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.